We're just gonna give it like a couple seconds to feed in. Now use some music playing. Whatever.
And then we can just crop it.
Yep.
Or edit it.
Ready, guys? Ready? This is exciting. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of the Say It With Your Chest podcast. My name is Sade.
I'm Kelly.
And we're here with Jordan today to talk about the commodity of the black student athlete.
So, we're really just getting down to the nitty-gritty of what it's like being a black student athlete here at Stonehill. So, Jordan, why don't you introduce yourself? Start with your name, class year, and the sport you play.
All right, sounds good. My name is Jordan Blassingame. I'm a junior, and I play football here at Stonehill. I appreciate you guys for having me.
Thanks for being our first guest. I'm very excited. At least for us, because we don't have experience on what it's like to be a black male athlete. I don't have an experience on what it's like to be a black man, period. Mm-hmm. But we wanted to ask you where you want to steer this conversation. So what do you want people to know? What misconceptions do you have on your mind? Because I know that this isn't something that's talked about a lot and not something that we hear about.
Yeah, I think personally, I think that the conversations about mental health and kind of like the expectations of an athlete and like the stereotypes of how we're perceived on campus versus like how we internalize ourselves is a big thing for my journey personally coming to Stonehill College. Coming from high school, I was in a situation where I thought I was going to be in. I had an opportunity taken away from me, and then coming into Stonehill was a little bit of an adjustment because it wasn't something I expected, Okay. Like it wasn't like I already went through all my visits. I had my offer lined up, and then like a situation happened, and then coming here without like any warning about the situation.
Yeah.
So like kind of that adjustment, and then dealing with injuries too. Mm-hmm. Like in my freshman year, tearing my ACL like the first practice, and then not finding out a month later.
Practice?
Yeah.
Your ACL too. It's a hard recovery.
But like playing on it, not finding out till the first practice, and then or the first game, and the process of like rehabbing from that, and like not being mature enough to like handle some of the situations and stuff like that. But like not to really ramble, it's really I feel like about perspective. Like when you're on a sports team or like you grow up in that kind of environment, I feel like it's you perceive it becomes so much of your identity, like it becomes
That's valid. I don't think I've ever thought of that, or at least for you personally, what's your perspective or your stereotype that you have in your head of the black male student athlete?
Here at Stonehill, personally, it's kind of like if I ever see a black student athlete, I automatically think they're playing football. It's not like it's not like they could be playing golf, they could be doing this, they could be doing that. It's just they're playing football. But that's also coming from my city. Like that's all I seen. Like all the black men were on the football team. But then like just going off that, I think it's really interesting how you say like you weren't mature enough to see how that process was going to work. 'Cause I think that's like a different perspective. Right. I never seen it like that, so I heard you say that, and I was like, oh, like I feel like sometimes we're not like in that state of really just understanding how things are supposed to play out, where we think like everything's supposed to happen in a certain way, or even just like being in college. And for me personally, it's just like I might not finish in 4 years, I might add an extra semester. Understanding and being mature enough to know like that's a process. Even with sports, I think is a big thing of acceptance in a sense.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think really, from my experience anyway, it's been a really like eye-opening experience, because like when you think of sports or like the athlete, the black male athlete, is something that like for a lot of us, like in my situation, I knew like that athletics was the only way I was going to get my education paid for, right? And that was something that I worked towards, and like it became like because of the work and because of the process of it, and like loving that, and like being around, developing, like seeing my skills develop as I got older in each level, like it became so much a part of you, and like you think you have like you said, that expectation of it, and then when the reality differs because of like circumstances you can't control, like trying to find a way to like figure out like how the current situation and like fits with your perception of what ought to be, you know what I mean? Finding that, connecting those two things so you could keep on moving forward from it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, 100%. I think it does take a lot of emotional maturity and then just maturity in general to get to that point and be like, I had these expectations my entire life, and now I'm dealing with something that's completely different. I want to lean into that a little bit more and lean into at least where I grew up in a lot of different places. Sports and entertainment were like the only way that we were going to get anything done. That's the only type of success that we were going to have. It was either that or being a lawyer. So do you think that you got into sports just because like you were like what is it like
athletic?
Yeah, an athletic kid, or like a kid that needed to be in sports, or like you said before, was it just a way for you to get to college?
Well, I mean, my older brother played D1 football, and my dad played D2 like for a little bit. And he like had like an opportunity with the Giants, so like it was always something like that. My family like has been like ingrained in my mom. Like always would take me and like love. She played basketball in college too, so it's I don't know. It's like just like carrying on. It felt like carrying on a tradition.
Yeah.
Like, and it was fun. Like it was always something because I was always an athletic like kid. So, but yeah.
No, I have a question about that. So like I understand how that's fun, but then it's also like you have your own expectations, and then in a sense, did you ever feel like you was like carrying your parents' expectations as well?
Yeah.
Because especially as a black man in general, like you're expected to carry society expectations, now your parents, and now your own. What did it ever feel like? That type of heavy, like I gotta do this for my parents because they did it type thing?
Not really, because I mean like maybe like a little bit more like with my mom, because she was like more dumb. She was like more like just like do it, like you know like, what are you doing? Like
you're gonna stop it,
like you stop BSing like or whatever. Like, whenever I do something, but like my dad, like the dynamic between us was like he's really like philosophical in like his approach, and he would always like give me like little sayings like time can work for you or against you, or like as long as you have yourself and God, then in the whole world is against you, then you're fine. And just like trying to like do things to build that perspective earlier, like that I'm talking about now, like with being able to see like how like when a situation changes from like your expectation, like how you could adapt to that. Like he was always like from a young age like trying to develop that in me, but like you know, like immaturity, like not trying to listen to your parents and stuff like that. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you realize later in life they were all gems. They were all good ones.
Exactly.
I think that that's good. I want to talk a little bit more about sort of the mental health aspect of things. Being a collegiate athlete. I think that being a collegiate athlete is very different from when you're playing sports in high school or you're playing rec sports, team sports, whatever. How was that adjustment for you? Because you not only had the adjustment of high school to college, of high school sports to college sports, you also had that setback that you mentioned. So can you talk a little bit about that?
I think it wasn't so much like the adjustment from high school to college, because my last 2 years of high school I ended up staying at like a boarding school in New Jersey.
Okay.
So I was able to kind of adapt to being away from home. But like with the injury and then like the situation like with school was like Cornell, like that I was supposed to go to, and like that whole situation, like I didn't cope with that properly. Like and cause like it happened probably like late in it was probably like my senior spring. Like and I already visited and everything, and like then it was last minute. I didn't even take a visit to Stonehill.
Oh, wow.
Like
that's crazy.
Yeah, like, and it was like even through like the process of like selecting where I was gonna go, I wasn't even like
looking at Stonehill,
or like no, like even in it, like even like thinking about, because like there was other schools that like I could have gone to as well, like that were probably like in like the Patriot League or like different divisions, and I just like was so caught up in that like opportunity that I lost, that like I didn't see like opportunities in front of me, and I just I just went here because like then I knew Miles, who was a senior last year, graduated.
Dang. Oh, I hear that.
I feel like that shit just got like thrown at you. Like it's kind of just like you had no other option in a sense. Like
the perspective of the situation. Like I was so concerned like with, because I wasn't really like talking back to coach. Like coach would reach out to me, but like I was like in my feelings basically. Like and I wasn't trying to like I was like, man, I'm not trying to do that. I'm supposed to be here.
Right. No, that's tough. Especially like I feel like once you have your eyes set on something, and like I'm the type of person where I'll get discouraged so quickly. Like if I have my eyes set on something and that's what I want, then that's it, and I don't want anything else. So I feel like to be able to bounce back from that is just like a skill we have to like grow up with. And then if you don't grow up with it, you're kind of just like, fuck, like what do I do? And then you gotta try to make it. Like I don't know. I feel like I don't know what I would do. I would be like, hell, not go to school.
Yeah. Do you find that not similar in the sense of like getting caught up in that particular disappointment, but do you find that other student athletes at Stonehill are sort of in similar positions? Because I don't think that I've talked to someone that was like, yeah, Stonehill is where I knew I wanted to go, and Stonehill is where I came for X, Y, and Z purpose. It seems like a lot of athletes just fall into place at Stonehill.
I think it might be like a mixture of both. Like I think Coach Gardner definitely like creates, like for the football program specifically, Coach Gardner is like creates a welcoming environment. Like he's a real down to earth, like friendly guy. Like and like even when I was on my visit, like I could see myself playing for him. So like I think it might be a mixture of, you know, just circumstances. Like with some people's recruiting process, like everyone's is different, and and like Stonehill being a good fit, like it being like a place where you feel like you could grow, you could learn, and you have opportunities for like outside of football, but like also developing in football, like with the coaching staff.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know if I could like blanket statement say like if like people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's true. You can't do that for really anything.
Yeah.
And like with everything with COVID now, so since you guys didn't have a season last semester, and then this semester, what do you guys do? Like spring ball?
Yeah.
So like, do you feel like, because normally, so besides this year, you've been playing football throughout the whole time here.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that affects you as like a student, as a person, because like now you're not playing as the same as you were? Like, you know what I mean? Like things are slowing down. Does that make you feel like a little unbalanced?
Well, I mean, for me personally, like, cause after my like in the middle of the sophomore season, like I had like a, just mentally, like I was just drained, like the expectation of like, still like feeling like the effects of my injury, like in my leg, and like not, like having like I had a good camp coming in, like, and I was in the rotation, but I felt like I could have done better, and like still like again that expectation of it, and like just situations coming from that, like coming based on that, like, and me not focusing on what I need to focus on, and like it just felt like it was so overwhelming. So I just told Coach Gardner I need to step away and figure out like who I am, like especially on campus too.
I respect that.
Yeah, and like I don't know, because it's also like bringing in like the dimension of race into it too, like feeling like, you know, like when you go into a class and you feel like you're the only whatchamacallit, like black or like Hispanic or like whatever kid, and like it's an awkward dimension, like, and it's like you feel alone too, like that's another like element, like where you don't feel like you feel like no one on campus really understands you, or like it's not really, and you don't want to like go to intercultural affairs all
exactly
the time, like, I'm not trying to like pop out to like, you know what I mean, like so it's
like on the couch, like
exactly,
like,
so
black
it's
people, anyone? No, I get that, and I think it's something that I think we're getting more comfortable talking about on campus, but I can only imagine the dual isolation that you're feeling, because I feel like as a student athlete, when I think student athlete and I see student athlete, you already have a built-in social group. I feel like you come here and you have a team and you have like your band of brothers, your band of sisters, whatever, for the ladies that play sports. But is that the case? Like, I didn't know that you guys struggled similarly, or well, I guess you can only speak for you personally, struggled similarly socially. Because you're still at a PWI. You have your team and whatnot, but you're still surrounded by people that don't look like you. That if they do try to understand you, it more so comes off as an imitation. Yeah. So what was your process, or what is your process of adjusting to that and finding yourself in a place where you don't see yourself?
I think for me, well, first off, that was a good question.
Thank you.
Thank you. You really like threw that on me, but
no pressure.
For me, it's been authentically being myself and like not trying to conform to fit into whatever the class or whatever the setting is. Like not trying to tone down like because you know, like I have like a deep affinity for like history and like different stuff, like for black struggle and like all this different aspects of like black history. And so I was like, in the beginning, like probably like my first 2 years, I was tentative and challenging, like when like something was said, like that was like, hey, like I don't know how I, you know what I mean, like, or like not feeling like knowing that I have like that I'm smart enough and like I'm probably one of the smarter people in the room and I could voice that, and not feeling comfortable like with that, you know what I mean, like not being like feeling like I'm doing too much or like
exactly,
and you know, just gaining comfortable like with myself in that regard and letting myself be myself, you know, like regardless of anything.
That's valuable.
Yeah. So would you say like that whole thing is like a big facade? Because I like what you're saying. Like I know a lot of the girls that play sports here, and I'm like, geez, you got mad friends. Like they all doing housing together. They're doing this together. They get dinners together. And I'm like, oh, you came in like off the bat like set. Like you know what I mean? And I'm like, damn, I think it's like a little harder. But I don't know, because now that you're saying that, maybe it's like one I don't know, like a big facade. Like it's not all true because like
Yeah.
I feel like maybe because social media plays a big aspect on that. Like they come off. It doesn't always mean like you said, they could always. Being able to find yourself within that, I think is hard because you're around so many people, and it's just like I think that's where a lot of it, like that part, comes into play because you're around so many people. You guys are all doing the same exact thing. Like where are you different? Where do you? Fit in?
What's the community like? So how do you find yourself interacting with other black men on campus? Period, and then black men who also play sports.
Yeah.
Like what is that community like?
I think. In regards to like interacting with other black men, it's more, I don't know. I feel like it's I don't know how to describe it because it's like a normal, like something that I've always just like, what's up, like, you know, like just chopping it up, just like like it's not like anything like too really deep. And I think like when we have like in certain settings, obviously like when it's mosaic, when we have our mosaic meetings, we try to discuss like deeper topics and like have more what's the word, complete like or like substantial like dialogues.
Exactly.
But like I mean amongst other athletes, I mean I think that's like for me personally, like given my circumstances coming from being like not necessarily coping like with my previous situation and coming in and then kind of like getting hurt early and then like feeling like I could be out there like and I should be playing like I could be playing right away, like kind of isolating myself from the team a little bit too in that regard because I didn't want to, you know, like not that I didn't want to be here, but like I still had unresolved feelings about like my about the past.
Yeah.
So
like with that being said, do you have any like I don't know if like code switching is the word from like the field to the classroom? Like is there a different
a good question.
Like, you know what I mean? Like is there a different environment from like you on the field and you in class? Like
definitely. I think that's like for a lot of the athletes, it's a place like where we could be like let out aggression, like let out like you know like we could let out like that aspect that we can't show in like a classroom setting or like in a professional environment, and it's kind of therapeutic in a sense. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and do you see that because you don't think it would be accepted in like a classroom or professional assignment, or is it mainly just like it's some like locked up feelings that you just let out there?
I think it's locked up feelings. I think it's more just, you know, like dealing with like everyday stuff, like it builds up and like having that outlet to just like literally let it out.
No, that's not
I think that's valuable for anybody. I can probably use that. I'm not planning on playing a sport anytime soon, but I think that's valuable. And I know that you do have to go and we have to wrap up pretty soon, but one thing that I thought was really interesting, two things that I thought were really interesting. Number one, the way in which you find community with other black men and then other black male athletes, I think is really interesting because for me, whenever I'm interacting with other women of color on campus, even if it is just a hey, hi, what's up, for me it's a profound experience to just remind myself that there's other people here that look like me.
Literally.
There's other people here that are going through the same shit that I'm going through. They're experiencing the same microaggressions on a daily basis. So I think for me, those encounters are pretty valuable, but I'm also sure that's also because I don't play a sport. I don't have that community outside of, you know, outside of saying.
And I feel like I don't know like off the top of my head, but I feel like women of color aren't as represented in Stonehill as like.
Agreed.
So I mean.
Agreed.
You hit the nail on the head.
At least you guys are getting recruited. We're just here.
We just pop up like
Exactly.
play what's up.
Exactly. And then the other thing that I did just want to talk about a little bit before we wrap up. In your social circles with other men of color, are you guys talking about these things? So I know that you said in Mosaic we have these conversations, but are you guys talking about your day-to-day stress, the mental health concerns, the transitions that you guys are experiencing? Are these conversations being had? If they are, can you just tell us a bit of how we can continue to facilitate those conversations? And then if they aren't, how can we bring them into that people have those resources?
I think in indirect ways they happen. You know, like it's never like explicit like asking
Let's
how.
sit down and talk.
Yeah, exactly. Like it'll be like how you just how you living, or like or how you feeling, like you know, like it'll be like little stuff like that, and you never. I don't know. I think it's a part of like masculinity and not wanting to like being okay with not being not wanting to be vulnerable,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
you know, like it depends on the level of friendship too. I mean,
That's
like
true,
there's
that's
people
true.
like that you feel like on campus. Like I know for me, like Shamir, J Mac, like
Mhm.
those are people like I could feel like I could talk to about like
Right,
certain issues if I have those kind of issues, and like they could talk to me about that stuff.
Mhm.
But I mean, with everything that's going on, like in our day to day, it's just trying to. I feel like we just try to stay in the moment of it. Like you
Right.
can't really
That's
worry
like,
about
no.
feelings.
That's
Yeah.
true. I hear you. I think,
That's crazy.
yeah, I don't.
I'd go nuts doing that.
Yeah.
Because I'm always stressing about like what's next. So
Mhm.
for me to live in the moment and not think about anything, I'd be like,
What? No, I have to live in the moment.
What?
If, I,
Oh.
think, if I think
Exactly.
too far ahead, bro, I would
Exactly.
crash.
No.
I would crash.
That's probably why I do this.
Dang. But no, I think that that's good. If you guys could pull
Yeah.
a couple of important things from this, like we haven't been able to have that long of a conversation. There's a lot of stuff that I still want to talk about,
Yeah.
but if you're pulling a couple things out of this conversation, what's one thing that you think you learned that you reaffirmed, just about the black student athlete in general, and then what's one thing that you want people to take away?
Mhm.
So we don't have to say it now. You can sit on it and think about it, but I think that'll be two good things to send people off with.
Oh,
Yeah. I'll go. I mean, for
No,
me,
okay.
I think like I've always had this. I always had this big facade, especially like I don't know, with just like men who play sports here. I'm just like they're living their best life. Like
Mhm.
they're chilling, they're living their best life, they're doing whatever the hell they want to do.
Mhm.
That's just me. That's what
Yeah.
I've always thought coming to Stonehill. Once again, because it's very clear between like the black male and the black female. Like you said,
Mhm.
it's just like they already got their whole squad. Like they're chilling.
Right, they're good.
Like, you know what I mean? So I've always had that, but now I'm like really sitting down and talking. Like, I just came to the conclusion, like, it's a big facade. Like,
Mhm.
they could probably put it out there to be like that, but it's not really what it is.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So, and I hate that, like, some of the students, like, here, not hate, that's a tough word, but, like, they kind of just, like, fall into place. Like, I kind of just wish, like, the athletes that were here wanted to be here. I'm not saying they don't, but, like, it's always, like, because if I was an athlete and Stonehill wasn't my first choice and I'm here, it's kind of like, oh, like, I wish I was, you know what I mean? But, yeah, I think for me it's just like, wow, like, it's a big facade. Like,
Yeah. I dig that. Are you up to it?
Yeah, I think that I'm sorry, I just completely blanked. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Hey, not gonna lie, I also forgot the question. One takeaway from the conversation that you had personally, and one
Okay.
thing that you would like people to take away
Okay.
from the conversation.
Well, from the conversation and like, again, like my own experiences, like everything I'm saying is from my experience.
Mhm.
I think that like Kelly said, like the facade of it, like it's not a monolith. Like we're not all like living our best lives or like doing this like. And I mean, you think about the schedule of it too. Like we're literally like you have to stay in the moment. Like 6:30,
Yeah,
like and then we have like all the like it's cooler now because like of COVID and stuff that we can't like lift as regimented as we can. But like it's such a rigid schedule and
Exactly.
academics on top that like we can't we just have to stay in the moment. We have to But like that doesn't mean that we're like all like the same type of way. Like we all try to find ways to differentiate ourselves and be ourselves and like kind of speaking to the point about like Stonehill not being a first choice. I think it's important to understand that like the student athletes, like for some of them it may be their first choice because like this school may have offered like was the only one that offered an opportunity, or it could be like, or like even me, like even in the situation, like you're grateful for the situation and you still want to like perform and you want to like do your best and like put on like be a dog. Like there's still like that level of commitment and level of drive that forces you to do it. So like I think like for student athletes, just showing like that you care more outside of football too, like in different aspects of the community, like like applying the same lessons and teachings that we learn from football into like other aspects. And I think if more people do that from like freshman year to like they graduate, like then we can see a more comprehensive change in what we want to see for like especially black males and like black people or people of color on campus, because we make up such a large demographic of that. I think we could make a much bigger impact than we have already.
Yeah, I dig that. I think if I'm taking anything away from this conversation, it's similar to what Jordan said. It's seeing black men that play sports on this campus as full people.
Yeah.
So seeing them as people that like you have interests and things like that. Like
it's not just
you guys,
football.
exactly, you guys have passions, but then also that you guys are hurting in some of the same ways that we're hurting. And I think that that's really valuable, not just for me to take away, but for other people to see. And like I said, there's a lot of things that we haven't touched in the conversation, but there's always next time. Next time. Thank you for being here. Anything that you want to add, Kelly?
I just wanted to throw in that, like, I really respect the fact that y'all use whatever sport y'all play as an outlet, but I really do want to stress, like, mental health is so important, and having conversations that are not normally had on a daily basis is so important. So I'm hoping to dive deeper on that on Saturday in person, and kind of just really go in how we can have these conversations, like, I don't want to say correctly, but in a meaningful way. Like, we're just not just speaking. Like,
or finding ways to, like, cope for yourself, too. Like, like meditation, like, you know, like, even if it's an individual practice, just finding ways to take care of yourself.
Right. Exactly, and getting things done.
Yeah.
I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's our first attempt at anything like this. Hopefully it was a productive conversation, not just for us, but for you guys too.
Literally.
And we'll see you at the next episode.
Bye.
Not the music not even being on. There we go.
Oh, that was lit.
Okay. You can press stop.